Right. Thanks so much for having me. So personally, I don't know much about him or his politics. I listened to a few of his songs. So when the festival organizers announced that he'd be playing, we didn't think too much of it, right? So when we first saw the viral video on Twitter, because that's where it, kind of circulated first, you can say that a lot of us were pretty surprised. And almost immediately our reaction was, what is the government going to do about it? Because, that's how we're kind of trained to think in these situations that involve the safety of the queer community here in Malaysia. So yeah,
So you weren't surprised that the government shut down the festival as quickly as they did then?
no, kind of expected it. These things tend to happen.
Y-
Yeah.
Yeah. Dear, I'm sure at the time he thought it would be an act of solidarity with the queer community in Malaysia, but it's caused such an angry reaction from many Malaysians. Explain to us why this is the case.
Right. So in Malaysia, we're seeing that there's two different reactions from two very different groups. So the first reaction is coming from the government and those who support the government, and in the sense that they see this as a violation of local laws, customs, and ideals of family values, right? But that's not the view that us activists support. Whereas on the other side, the critiques of his actions are mostly coming from the fact that he hasn't really had any real lived experience of being subjugated or marginalized by these laws that the British actually brought to Malaysia as part of our colonial history. So this critique sees that his actions will bring about more opposition from a majority of Malaysians who are still suffering from this colonial trauma. So yeah.
That is an interesting point. So, after something like this happens, do you feel the impact? Do you feel the sense that the desire to shut down your community gets even harder?
Yeah, I mean, Malaysia's government stance on LGBT issues has been very clear and very anti-LGBT. So yeah, this was definitely not an event that was in our favor.
What are the laws around being gay in Malaysia at the moment?
So Malaysia has a dual justice system. We have the federal law, particularly the Penal Code, Section 377A, which carries a maximum sentence of 20 years in prison. But we also have various state Sharia laws that can criminalize sexual relations between men, between women, and even criminalize the attempt to those sexual relations. We also have various fatwas, which are religious opinions or edicts that guide policymaking, and these also declare diverse gender identities and expressions as forbidden in society. We also have various laws restricting our freedom of expression, our freedom of assembly, as well as our freedom of association. So there's a bunch of laws that are working against us, essentially.
Yeah. There was one person who presented themselves as something of, say, a drag queen who went to the concert and said they felt very able to express themselves at a concert like that. Are there opportunities to express whatever gender people are representing?
Right. I guess the local queer spaces have and they are and have always been, in secret, underground, because we are at risk of, state persecution. So I would say that there are spaces, we find a way to exist even under, regimes that work against us. But yeah, it's underground and not a lot, mostly in the central region.
Yeah. How would the Malaysian queer community like support? What could the 1975 have done to show support without creating this backlash?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think what's important to highlight here is that the queer community welcomes allyship, right? We'll take as much as we can get. So we hope that this uproar has not disincentivized, our allies in the global north from supporting our cause in the future. But the only request that we have is that you talk to us, the people on the ground. There are not a lot of us doing this work, but there are a strong number of us that do. And the work that we do is meaningful, and we are seeing change. We have very specific programs tailored to improving the lives of queer Malaysians on the ground. We have support programs, welfare programs, legal aid, sexual health awareness and prevention, and even research. So yeah, we were hoping that you would have a conversation with us before do these acts of activism and platform us as well, because that is important, because our grassroots movements need to be led by one of us.
Yeah, and that sort of quieter approach might be better in the long run. And it seems too as if the government is cracking down on performers now coming to Malaysia after this incident.
Yeah, so they blacklisted 1975 indefinitely, and they even lodged investigations against the organizers of the Good Vibes Festival. But also the Central Agencies Committee, PUSPAL in short, in Malaysia, they're also reviewing their screening processes for foreign artists to perform in Malaysia. So we worry that this disproportionate response from the government will set a new precedent in restricting freedom of expression or silencing any kind of criticism against the government, particularly when it comes to LGBTQ issues.
Yeah, well, hopefully a lesson learned for everyone. Really good to talk to you, dear. Thanks for your time.
Thanks so much.